Now, as we do so many weeks here at the Daly Dose, we need to get to our Daly Dose top 5. Like we announced earlier in the show, Tom Brady might be retiring. After 22 seasons and 7 Super Bowl victories, the most decorated quarterback in the history of the league might be hanging it up. And I've told you on the Dose before, I think all of the greatest quarterback of all time stuff is nonsense. You can't prove it. Most decorated? Not even close. Greatest? Who knows? I mean, Tom Brady didn't play in an era of like playing on dirt fields like Johnny Unitas did. He didn't play in an era of being able to knock his and his receivers' heads off like Montana and Marino and Elway did. And those guys didn't get to play in this super soft era either. So all of the GOAT stuff and all of the best ever stuff and all the, well, there's no question he's the greatest ever. All that stuff is totally subjective. And you can't prove it. And it's all really nonsensical to me. But there is no question that what Tom Brady has done is absolutely insane. I mean, Tom Brady led the New England Patriots to 17 division titles, including 11 straight from 2009 to 2019. That's crazy. He led them to 13 AFC championship games, again, including 8 in a row from 2011 to 2018. He took them to 9 Super Bowl appearances. He took them to 6 Super Bowl titles, all NFL records for a player and for a franchise. Then Brady left the Patriots. He joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020, and he led them to a Super Bowl victory, extending that individual record of his to 10 Super Bowl appearances and 7 Super Bowl rings. That is absolutely incredible. But today, our Daly Dose has 5 stats for you that are going to sound like either myself or maybe members of the Daly Dose I-Team or someone made them up. I assure you, that is not the case. These 5 items are 100% true. Today, we count down the top 5 Tom Brady stats that sound fake. But trust me, they aren't. Let's go ahead and jump in at number 5. I am going to give you a stat right now, and when you hear it, you go, that can't be right, and yet it is. Tom Brady has won 12.5% of all Super Bowls in history. From Super Bowl 1 until now, Super Bowl 56, Tom Brady has been the winner of over 12% of every Super Bowl. That doesn't make any sense. How can that be true? But it absolutely is. I mean, when you're thinking back to some of those old teams and some of those old players, and Tom Brady has won over 12% of every Super Bowl. That is absolutely insane. It sounds fake, but it's absolutely true. And it comes in today at number 5. We move next to number 4. Here's our next stat. Tom Brady has more career passing touchdowns than the Carolina Panthers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Jacksonville Jaguars, or the Houston Texans franchises have. Not combined, but individually. Tom Brady has more touchdowns than 4 different NFL franchises. And I realize that those franchises are relatively new. But how do you have more touchdowns than a franchise? You've had as many quarterbacks as you can possibly get. Tom Brady has thrown more touchdowns than your entire franchise has thrown. That comes in today at number 4. Next up at number 3, we have another stat that kind of sounds made up. In NFL history, how many quarterbacks have passed for 600 touchdowns? 1. That is Tom Brady. He's the only guy ever. He's the only guy who ever did it. And I mean, when you think of some of the more modern guys, you think of the Drew Brees, you think of the Peyton Mannings, you think of some of these guys, Ben Roethlisberger. Only one guy has passed for 600 touchdowns. That has a lot to do with longevity. That has a lot to do with greatness. That has a lot to do with a guy that just knows how to get it done. Tom Brady, the only guy ever in NFL history who has passed for at least 600 touchdowns. It's just Tom. He's the only guy in the 600 touchdown club. That comes in today at number 3. Next up at number 2, we have another stat that when I tell it to you, you're going to say, that doesn't sound right. That kind of sounds made up. And yet I assure you, this is absolutely true. I want you to think back to some Super Bowl history. What teams have won the most? Who have been the best teams in the NFL? You might think like the Pittsburgh Steelers. You might even think the New England Patriots. Here's what's kind of crazy to think about. Our number 2 stat. Tom Brady has won more Super Bowls than the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has 7. The Steelers have 6. Tom Brady has also won more Super Bowls than the New England Patriots. Because again, he has 7 and the Patriots have only 6. And that comes in at number 2. How is that even possible? But it absolutely is. Finally, we reached the number 1 stat about Tom Brady. That when you hear it, you just go, that doesn't sound right. That sounds made up. There's no way that's true until you stop and you think about it and you go, well, yeah, I guess it is, but it still doesn't sound right. Like that sounds kind of weird. Here's our number 1 stat. Tom Brady has gone to the Super Bowl 10 different times in 19 seasons that he was healthy. That is a percentage of 52.6%. In his 19 seasons as an NBA player, Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James has made 50.4% of his shots taken from the field. That means that Tom Brady is more likely to go to the Super Bowl than LeBron James is likely to make his next basket. And that, my friends, is a stat that, again, sounds completely made up. And yet, because of the incredible career that we know that he has had, it's absolutely true. Tom Brady, more likely to go to the Super Bowl than LeBron James is to make his next basket. I don't know how these things work. Like I've told you before, the Daly Dose Top 5 has a mind of its own. This one sounds completely fake. It sounds completely made up. It sounds like the Daly Dose I-Team just made up a bunch of stats. Trust me, you can look them up. They are all true. Okay, YouTube, be sure that you go out and you check out the rest of the podcast. This week on The Dose, we are recapping those wild and crazy NFL playoffs. We have a theory on one of the games and why it went the way that it did. And, we have a ton of NFL news this week. A lot of coaches being hired. One coach staying where he was. And, ESPN is doing some really weird things lately. We've got some things to talk about there. Plus, we're looking at a few reasons that the 2022 Winter Olympics might be worth tuning in for this year. So be sure you go out and you check out the rest of the podcast. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.